Well, hello and welcome to PM Express. Well, last Saturday, 7th of July, the NPP went to elect their delegates, national executives who are going to run the party's affairs for the next 4 years. And some old ones were dropped, some new ones came in. And so we are here to look at how the whole thing went, some of the fallout. Indeed, this 275 buses has become a matter of controversy. The National House of Chiefs is asking that they should look into it, as it looks like it's a vote-buying saga. It's indeed interesting times ahead, and that's what we're here to analyze. And I have a very fine gentleman who really understands what grassroots politics is all about, so you don't want to move. My name is Nana Ansakwa, the fourth Chief of the Little Republic of Akwamu Edumasa. When we come straight back, we're looking at the fallouts of the NPP Delegates Conference. So go. Well, thank you very much for staying with me in the studio as a governance expert, a lawyer, and an economist, Dr. Oduro Osae. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you, my brother.
Always good to have you on the show.
Good to have you too.
Doc, let me just get your preliminary comments on 7th July event. How did you see it?
Well, let me say good evening to our viewers. I think it went well. Looking at where NPP has come from, what happened in Tamale and all of that, one would have thought that having tasted power and the way accusations went and counter-accusations went, one would have thought that on the day of elections we'll see those accusations happening. But it never happened, except for the last-minute bus donations. I think that all in all, it went well. But I cannot also conclude about my impression by also not mentioning that it was so figural that I did not see any member of the largest opposition party, the NDC, delivering a solidarity message. And I was curious why that, because I was thinking that we are developing and building our democracy, so we're expecting all of them to be there. So I'm sure maybe they'll have some explanations for that. But I think all in all, so far so good.
Could it be that they didn't want to be associated with this bus saga?
I don't want to conclude that. I want to believe that either the communication never got to them early enough, or maybe they have some tangible reason why they were not there early enough to deliver their solidarity message.
What would you say? I mean, some of the old executives that got suspended, Afoko and Co., I mean, would you say is it now for the party to sort of bring some reconciliation, or look, suspended, forget it, let's move on, after all we won without you?
I think that is not good politics. I think it's about time they reconsider their decision on those affected parties. You see, politics is about numbers, and I'm sure those individuals may have learned their lessons now. So if I were the leadership of the NPP or the executive, what I would do is invite them, look at their behavior, look at how they've related to the party. Now we are in power. Let us try to get them to appreciate why they were suspended. And then if they are able to show a sign of remorse, then we bring them on board, because politics is about numbers. And I'm sure they've learned their lessons.
Doc, now let's go to grassroots politics. As it happened, you have a number of delegates who have to vote to then elect their executives who come to run the party. Is it becoming too expensive? And literally, if these guys are buying their position, can we go back to them and demand fair governance or good leadership if indeed they paid for the position?
You see, by the nature of our laws, we have no option than to demand the highest level of good governance from them, irrespective of how they, ascended to the positions or the throne. I think it is about time we revisit the provisions in the Political Parties Act and even in the constitutions about political party financing. Because if we are not very careful in a part of the world, people who are very rich, who have what it takes, would always buy their way out. Because there are majority of the people out there who think that when it gets to elections, you need to also show that you are serious. And to show that you are serious, you need to make some resources available to me. For instance, if I am a delegate and I have to come and vote for you, and you never bothered how I got there, the person who bothers how I got there will get my vote. But ordinarily, that should not be the case in a democracy. And that delegate coming is representing a group of people, remember. Question we need to ask ourselves is, when that person was coming, what did the group ask the person to come and do? When the person got there, what exactly did the person do? Do we have a feedback mechanism to suggest that this person has gone to cast his vote in a manner or in a way as expected by the people who sent him? That thing is not there. So I think it boils down to us revisiting the issue of political party financing or financing political party activities under our laws. If we want the state to be involved, all the better. Because as it is now, bigger political parties like the NPP and the NDC can start from the grassroots, from the ward level to the constituency level, to the regional level, to the national level. It is expensive, but they have what it takes to organize those things. How about the other smaller political parties? Are they able to have the resources to organize these broad-based elections and to open up the electoral process so that they will be able to get people emerging who really represent the grassroots? You know, so if we are building a democracy, these are the areas we need to look at.
How challenging is it? Because the truth of the matter now is that the amount of money going in, and nobody knows where the money comes from. Nobody's accounting for the money, but we know that it's a lot. Billboards, T-shirts, free transport, food, pocket money, all these things. But you and I sit here and we expect that, yeah, we have to go and demand accountability. From who? I've paid for it. You know, I've paid for my position and I've paid dearly. Almost every DC has to pay to get the position. All the assemblymen in your area who vote for you would come and demand money. And they all pay to get there. So after the DC is there, how then do you go to the DC and say, look, now become a fair DC? Of course not. I need to go and replenish wherever it is the money came from.
Well, you know, it's because our tax system and some of our institutions are not working well. In other parts of the world, if you exhibit this, what will happen is that the next day, the tax authorities will descend on you, try to investigate as to whether you've discharged your tax obligations to government. Again, the local government, I was expecting the new Jabe Municipal Assembly to make a lot of money because you cannot erect a billboard there just like that. The rules are different. You need permit to do all of that. You know, so if they are not able to also cash in, it's going to be a problem for them. And then we need to ask ourselves that those candidates who had that money to erect those billboards, not only in Koforidua but in other places, where did they get the money from? It tells us that politics is becoming business. It is becoming an investment. People invest in it with the hope that they are going to reap. That is why society, we have to also open our eyes widely. Because if this is the perception and impression of people about politics, then we also have to hold them to a higher standard. But the person has invested in it, expecting to reap some benefit from those investments. It then tells us that the democracy we have inherited from the Western world, we have inherited and copied blindly. Because our society, in my view, may not be there. Because in other countries, you have to declare your assets. In other countries, after this Congress or the conference, you get the tax authorities descending on the individual, checking whether they have filed their taxes. Even if they have businesses, they will check. Because you cannot misuse resources when you have not paid what you're supposed to pay to government. You know, so it's about the systems, it's about the individuals, it's about us tweaking our laws to make it difficult for people to display such wealth.
You know, we cannot speak without this 275 buses. Everybody's saying that the timing was wrong and everything. But I mean, $11.3 million. I mean, even when Donald Trump's case came about paying it was $100,000. I mean, you know, I think maybe because we live in Ghana and we always hear millions, we think it's regular. But in advanced countries where leaders are being hauled to jail and stuff, it's normally $200,000 and $80,000 and $30,000. Sometimes even $5,000, or even somebody paid for a hotel room, and you become, you get 11.3. Should alarm bells ring?
You see, I think our laws are weak, the political party laws, because the political party laws allows a member of the political party to make donations to the political party. My challenge is the timing. And then if it is a special arrangement with the bank, that is my understanding. If it's a special arrangement with the bank and the bank facilitated it, so be it. But the question then is, what kind of business model are they putting in place? If other political parties appeals to that particular bank, would they be able to extend same facilities to them? Why do we do it closer to a conference that is expected to confirm you or otherwise as the leader of the party? These are the issues that we need to look at. But otherwise, our laws allow that. If we think we are not going to allow that, then we should tweak our laws to prevent individuals from doing that. Because we've had instances where other individuals have spent their money to do other things. But the question is, what are the standards? So that is why I am of the view that we have to do something to our laws.
Do you think they should stop it or cap it? Because the figure is...
It will be difficult to cap. Insofar as we have not indicated in our political party laws the average capitalization amount required by a political party. If a political party or the political parties are categorized and say that because you are a company limited by guarantee, we think that if you have branches all over the country, your minimum capitalization should be so much, your maximum capitalization or cash requirement should be so much. You are not supposed to spend more than such and such amount on a national congress or a national conference. Once we are able to set those limits, then we will be in business. One thing that is missing from our political space is guidance and ethics on political party funding. We've made clear-cut provision in the Political Parties Act, but the range of regulation is not there. From the individual level to the ward level to the constituency level to the national level, we don't have a range within which you have to spend. So you can spend any amount of money insofar as you have the resources available. But there is a multiplier effect on the economy. You know what has happened to the Koforidua economy? You know what has happened to Ghana? Because on the day of the Congress or of the conference, you can imagine that everybody who is a minister will go there with an official vehicle and a ministry driver. They'll give them fuel for that. You know what you are doing to the economy? So all what I'm saying is that we have provisions in our political parties laws for political party financing. Let us develop a legislative instrument or a code that would guide and set limit, range within which you can spend. If you go beyond that, the tax authorities or the appropriate institutions must investigate your activities.
One issue that came up with I think the Conservative Party rep saying that, look, he saw more billboards, than the delegates, obviously trying to say, look, probably spending more on advertising. I mean, what does he speak to the situation?
No, but I'm one person who also disagrees with him. Okay. I'm not sure they don't do that in the UK. They do it. They do it. If he's saying that, looking at the level of development in the country, he was not expecting to find things like that, I would agree. But if you say that you saw more billboards than human beings, we have 6,000 delegates. Is he trying to say that he got 8,000 billboards there? So yes, it is a legitimate concern, but I think he did not put it through well. You can say that looking at the level of development in this country and the poverty and the things you came across when you were entering Koforidua.
I think one of the issues he raised was also posters.
Yes, so I think that we should not be spending so much on it. But I would also expect him to have advised that we should develop a spending code, a political party spending code for individuals and the party itself at its programs, at the district, at the constituency, at the regional, at the national level, so that it will guide us. That is what is missing. As of now, it is free range. You can spend $300 billion and nobody can question you. And they will tell you you've not flouted any law. And it is true. Our law is open-ended and too generic. Let us put some cap and the range that will guide political parties. Because if not, one day we'll wake up, and then the political party will spend about 90% of Ghana's GDP on elections. Then you can't complain. You cannot even ask of the source of the funds because the political party is clear. If they said it were a contribution from members, what can you say? You cannot say anything. So I think we should do something to our laws. Well,
that's going to be a tough one unless an individual go, because the two main parties who can flout these laws are those who benefit from it. So I'm not going to come into power and say, okay, this is it, I'm going to put a cap on it, because I need to spend to win.
But I believe that if we start the advocacy, if the media joins, if other civil society organization joins, that we think that we should make a law that will cap or place a range or put a range in place on the spending of political party activities, it will help us.
Well, I mean, how would you, let's say, look, no party should spend more than $5 million, on a particular election. I mean, who then monitors? I mean, I'm busing people from Tamale to Kufuridia to come and vote. They have to feed them, sleep in a guest house, go back. What do? You just go follow back and say, no, from Tamale to Kufuridia, 3 buses should be this. How would you?
I'm sure if we develop the framework.
Actually, you're an accountant.
Yes, if we develop the framework, we can come up with a system that can help us to monitor. Let me tell you, Morocco developed the Right to Information Act. They passed the act and they said, look, we are going to use 2 years. We'll set it aside, and then within 2 years, we'll put the systems in place to implement it. And they have put the system in place and they are implementing. We should just start it, and I think we can implement it. Because the way things are going, if we are not very careful, we're going to have people spending so much on the elections. When they spend so much on it, it has an adverse effect on the system. What they've invested. And when they come in, they will have to recoup their investment, which for us is not the best. You see, so let us try to regulate that bit. And apart from that, what it does to us is that it kills the smaller political parties because they cannot compete. They cannot compete. So now, what we are doing is we are operating in a perfectly competitive political market where those who have the resources are likely to attract more followers. And that is not the best.
With regards to resources, and I'm sure if it was a campaign in Doc, you came to Dumasa and you mount a platform and said, listen, I am a fantastic negotiator. I have an accounting background and a legal background. So, send me into parliament or send me into this political position and nothing will pass by me without me scrutinizing it. They'll probably laugh at you. And somebody else will come, probably, cannot read a sentence, but has a word of cash and say, look, I'm the one in the kente cloth, I'm the one in the kente cloth, take. They'll get. So how then, do we solve the situation? Because even we, the people, will then go for the money rather than you who...
Yeah, and you see, the solution is simple. We should develop our electoral system or representative democratic system in such a way that the election will produce the most competent person, not the most popular person. The way we are working around it, our electoral system is indirectly producing the most popular and not necessarily the most competent person. And if you want an electoral system to produce the most competent person and not necessarily the most popular person, you need to work on the electorate. Because it is one of the electorate that will be elected. So if you have a competently qualified electorate, they will elect one of their own. So we need to do capacity building, we need to do sensitization, we need to do orientation to help them to understand that that person is going to represent their interests. So they don't need to collect anything from that person. And that clothes them with the power of recall. In case the person goes and the person is not representing you well, by the power of recall under our laws, you can then have the zeal to recall the person. But as it stands now, if you go collecting money from people and you vote to them, they go there and they represent themselves and not you because they don't consult you before taking decisions. In that case, you find it difficult to recall the person. That on its own defeats the essence of representative democracy. So we should develop our system in such a way that our electoral process will produce the most competent person and not the most popular person.
Do you think it would happen?
It will happen. It will happen into the near future, except that we need to start now. developing the capacities of people, reorienting our people to let them understand that you are not supposed to buy your future or to pay for somebody's exit with 50 Ghana. You are not supposed to collect money and sell your future. It is about your future. This person representing you would have to bring water. You have to bring schools. You have to work in such a way that the roads are working. If you collect 50 Ghana cedis and he goes and is not able to bring those roads, stop complaining. If we get people to understand it, I'm sure that when they are going to vote, they will forget about the money and look at competence.
The level of poverty, the level of illiteracy, and the complication of the governance system we have chosen, it's a wide gap.
There is, and Nana, I've always said that.
Because every day you come on this show, you say something that even I don't know. This power of recall, you're just educating me about the power of recall.
Yes, we have a power of recall. If you have a member of parliament and he's not representing, you can recall the person. If you are an assembly member and he's not representing you well, you can recall the person. You see, I think we have to develop an African type of democracy. I always say this. An African type of democracy is intertwined with our existing traditional value system, which gives some power to the average electorate. But in the Western democracy, we have copied blindly. It is my view that I think, you see, in that case, people think that they have to go out there to vote for people because they have to give them job. And the people too that think that they are being given jobs by the electorate, so they have to pay them. That type of democracy is not good for us. And then in our case, you see, the illiteracy rate is very high. So it is easy for the few literate to convince the illiterate. And that is one of the problems we have. So, and that is why we need to spend a lot of money orienting and sensitizing people and educating people on our electoral systems. How many of our electoral laws have we reduced them into local languages? They are all in technical English language, which only you and I, who have been very fortunate to go to university, will be able to understand.
Because I'm saying, sometimes
So I think it is about time we work on the current democracy that we are operating. And to start with, let us link it or intertwine it with the existing traditional value systems, because that is closer to the people there. It is easy for you to explain democracy to an average person using the traditional system, the chieftaincy institution, than using something from Westminster. The person has never been to Kotoka before, and you are using Westminster.
It becomes too far from the person.
Too far, too abstract. The person cannot localize it.
My question again is, it will never happen, would it?
No, I have hope. It will happen one day. We have to start from now. We have to start from now. So I think, you see, if we do the advocacy around it, we have chosen a path of good governance, democracy, representative democracy. Let us develop it so well. If we develop it so well, one day we'll get there. Let us encourage people. Let us educate people. Let us improve the literacy rate. Because democracy thrives on good literacy, I can tell you. If people know their rights, if people can read and write, if people understand the implications of the decisions and the choices they are making now through a good literacy project, I can tell you that we can have the crop of leaders who are very competent emerging out of our electoral systems.
When you say tradition, my alarm bells go. In traditional, like as a chief, the chief is giving 100% authority, and then power is broken into pieces and given to all the chiefs. So Jasi has some power, Bemu has power, Pancrado has power, and none of them have authority. So at every given time, you need to have two people working.
Good checks and balances, internal checks and balances.
Kufuor said that power corrupts and absolute power will
corrupt.
Absolutely. Could such a system apply where one person hasn't got that arbitrary power, or how can that apply contemporary?
No, it can apply. In fact, when you look at contemporary governance, we have some element of it in there, except that it is not working as required. When you look at the principles of separation of powers, the three arms of government are expected to work distinctively, except that occasionally they have to work to check on each other. Because if you allow them to operate strictly, governance will come to a halt. So the checks and balances will work. But the way the checks and balances are supposed to work, they are not working like that. They are not working like that. That is why I'm saying that with the traditional value system, that one, you will respect it. In modern day politics, there are people who falls foul of the law and then they get away with it. With a traditional system, you may get away with it, but society will not forgive you. The stigma alone will prevent you from continuously committing that crime. So I think we have documented enough traditional value systems. Let us have people who will benchmark it with the modern day democracy and then develop an African type of democracy. It's not only Ghana. The whole of Africa, if we develop an African type of democracy, I'm sure the Western world would also come and learn. Because we have tried and tested our traditional system and it is working. It has worked. It is the only system that has stood the test of time. There's nothing like coup. You cannot organize any coup to overthrow a chief. You go and overthrow the chief. The traditional existing systems will install another equally qualified chief. But when you come to the modern day, people do all kinds of things. So I think we should just look at how best we can incorporate our good traditional systems into modern day democracy and call it African type of democracy that will suit our circumstance and promote our development.
We'll come back to the democracy thing, but one thing that President Kufuor has always talked about is that 4-year cycle is too short. That 4-year cycle is too short. I mean, he's rang this alarm bell several times. Now listen, the 4 years is too short. What do you think the 4 years is short or is enough?
Well, let me attempt to answer the question because I've never been a president. So President Kufuor has been a president before and he's telling you that it's too short. By my analysis, indeed, it may be too short, except that no one human being would ever have enough time. God gave all of us 24 hours. The difference is how we use your 24 hours. Some people may be sleeping when others are working, and that shows the difference. Now, in the first year you come to power, you have to put the systems in place. In the second year, you have to go into appointing your ministers and all of that. You are going to work. In the third year, you have to be consolidating. In the fourth year is an election year. So technically, you have only 2 years to deliver on your mandate. Unfortunately for us as a country, when the political parties are presenting their manifestos, we don't have a standardized national framework that will guide them to break it down into annual basis. So they just lump it on us and then we tell them, within 4 years, I'm going to do this. Now, when it comes to measuring their performance on an annual basis, then they will tell you, we say we'll do it in 4 years. But any serious country or any serious business will develop a medium-term plan and break it down into annual plans. So again, another governance gap. If we can develop a national comprehensive framework that will guide political parties in developing their party manifesto, that can be broken down on an annual basis to facilitate quality assurance and monitoring by the citizens, it will help us. Then it will be clear to all of us that the 4 years is not enough. Because if you are not very careful, we go into elections. Because in the first year, you set up the system. The second year, you are going into local government elections. The third year, you are preparing yourself for another elections. The fourth year is election. So I can agree with him. But the question then is, are we going to increase it to still maybe 5 years of 2 terms or 5 years of 1 term? That is a debate we should be having. The Constitution Review Commission raised the issue. We have not been able to conclude it. But it is a conversation we need to have as a country.
I think it's a good conversation to have because otherwise we seem to be in a perpetual election mode. And there should be a period where elections are literally out of the question so that governance can take over. We're going to take a quick break and then we are coming straight back to discussing the fallouts of this election. Well, thank you very much for staying, and we are discussing after the national executive elections that took place 7th July last Saturday by the New Patriotic Party. Interesting, all democracy as we know it. And from our discussions, there seems to be 2 sets of people, the few who understand the technicalities and the majority who are being tagged along. But let me put a very difficult question to Doctor, since Doc, is it time to go back to Unigov idea?
No, which is not time. Whichever way you look at it, the Unigov idea, if anybody who understands it, was a way of the military getting themselves entrenched into modern day politics. And it is not something that we should encourage, because that will lead to tyranny, autocracy, and it will defeat the purpose of representative democracy. We should rather perfect the existing system and make sure that it produces the most competent people.
With the existing system, aren't we perfecting a wrong system? We're making a wrong system perfect.
Yeah, the system is wrong, but we can perfect it. You see, there's nothing wrong with us having representative democracy. We have it in our traditional value system, and the person will be acceptable to all. But how you get that person to lead you is the challenge now.
Are you saying in a UniGov there won't be representative? I mean, it's just, we're not thinking about a one-party state. I'm talking about everybody coming together because you keep saying traditional. Yeah. Traditional is a sort of, pseudo UniGov.
Yes, it's a pseudo UniGov, but I'm looking at the UniGov in the context of the leaders themselves come emerging by virtue of a certain rights they inherited. Let's look at the UniGov within the military era. All the leaders of the various services became they intended forming the UniGov government. And these people were not elected. They were people who were leading the military, the police, the navy, the bodyguards, etc., by virtue of their leadership. What I'm trying to say is that in this day and age,
I mean, we don't need to go back to the Achampong
UniGov.
But we could have our own UniGov where, look, we all come together, and therefore we can apply a lot more meritocracy. Now listen, before you get to the top, you must have been an assemblyman. So that everybody who has a presidential ambition, you should be running to some village, starting your assemblyman, getting the nod that yes, he did it well, and then you move on. And
yes,
gradually the leader would emerge.
That is good. I like the getting it well part. But if you have a bad or a worse assembly member, and that assembly member wants to climb to become an MP, the person will be a bad or a worse MP. So we should develop a system that can receive the people, that can ensure that it will bring out the most competent men. That's what I'm looking for. We need competent leaders who will turn around the fortunes of this country so that it can fast track our development. And that I'm not getting from the current electoral systems.
See, what we are practicing now, and the truth of the matter is like at every given time, there's nearly 50% of the nation who are praying that something disgraceful would be attached to the ruling government and the party, so that come election time, they can use it as a winning ticket. But whatever negative that affects the party and the government affects the nation.
Definitely.
So we are always,
Can we then look at a two-party state?
That was my next question.
Because if that is the way we want to go, then an idea is being mooted in other parts of the world, in Africa, in other parts of Africa, where they want to have a two-party state. No elections are conducted. This party will rule for 10 years. The other party will also come in to rule for 10 years. What it then means is that naturally you hand over the baton to the other political party. It is the duty of the other political party to get their leadership. But the leader will have to revolve from one region to the other. So that, for instance, if that party produces a leader from the Greater Accra region, the constitution requires that your next leader should come from another region. So that gradually you do the regional balance. Then they leave the MPship and the assembly membership to the political parties and the individuals to deal with it. In that case, the state will not have to spend a lot of money around that. In that case, it will lead to resource redistribution. In that case, people become leaders, or they come into government and they don't squeeze unnecessarily the people at the other side. Well, they know that come the next 10 years, the scales will turn automatically. Once we are able to develop a system like this, our development will be properly targeted. We'll stop the witch hunting. We'll be able to see that we are each other's keeper. And all of us will sing from the same hymn sheet by way of development agenda.
Doc, but I mean, I think this is because you are a local government expert. So, with the development deficiency now, I mean, are we ready to split up? And I want to say split up for what? Because we seem to have one goal. Unlike some advanced countries who say, okay, no, we want space technology. Somebody say, no, we want Trident technology or this technology, so they can split up for that purpose. But for us, we need CHIPS compound, fill the potholes, borehole. So whether it's party B or party A, the corona and the so you ask yourself, why are you splitting up for the same thing? If we were going to split up for literally two different things, all these parties, NPP comes and says, look, we are the capitalists, and they say, oh yeah, leap, free school, free this. I mean, so you think, really? They are more socialists than anybody else. So why are we splitting up?
You see, it's about the how. The approach to getting there makes all the difference. The directive principles of state policy is clear. They are clear on the minimum standard, what we need to develop as a nation. The question is how to operationalize it. That is why we have parties coming out with different ideologies, different approaches. And if they market it, people buy it, they come to power, they execute it. The challenge is that the people who are to accept this manifesto themselves do not even know, I understand the implication of the directive principle of state policy. That is the problem we have. That is why I will go for a medium-term development plan, a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan that will stand the test of time. We legislate on it, we allow successive government to run with it. If we are able to do that, it will help. But the challenge then is because of the ideological differences, if you develop such a standard document, you tie the hands of an incoming government, and that also becomes difficult because people will vote for them on the basis of their manifesto, and the manifesto is developed according to their ideologies or the ideas. So I think, again, what will help us as a country, as I said earlier on, is to come up with a national framework. These are the minimum things that should be in every political party's manifesto, as per the directive principles of state policy. Break it down into annual basis. By the time you leave office, these are the targets you should meet. When the new government comes to power, your end target should be the baseline for the new government, for the new government to work with. Once we are able to do some of these things, I think we can see consistent development and continuity in our development.
You see, Doc, you look at our development trajectory, and every time there's been like a development revolution, is when there has been sort of a government who hasn't gotten competition. So you look at Nkrumah, you look at Achampong, you look at Rawlings. You give a big credit to Kufuor because he had an 8-year stint. So it's as if when the leader has peace of mind or some sort of guaranteed security, we are able to fast track development. But it's when there's a competition that looks in, there's somebody coming from here, then the development is reduced to street light, borehole, those quick fix, fast food development. But when like things like dam, Weja Dam, Dansuma, Koforidia, this, that, go, that's when he knows, look, may look, I can embark on it.
There are two things involved there. Divided attention is one, which does not allow them to concentrate on the core mandate of developing the nation. Because in developing the nation, you get the leadership also thinking about how to strategize to win the next election. Because you need to win the election to continue to perform your functions of developing the nation. So then there's divided attention there. So you don't get them to concentrate wholly on the development agenda for which they were elected. Secondly, if you know that you have 10 years, no competition, you can plan and plan well. You execute the agenda, and there is a very good basis for people to measure you. But the way it is piecemeal. You can have 4 years, but the government can come and tell you that, look, the first year we're just putting the foundation in place. The second year we have just started. The third year we are now landing. The fourth year we are doing elections. So give us another 4 years to be able to complete what we started in the previous 4 years. So I think that we should have, that I want to agree with President Kufuor, that we should have a fixed term, but we should increase the fixed term so that you can give the leader the room to operate without thinking about the next elections. And in fact, if I have my way, I will say that it should be only one-term president. You go and you don't go again. So then the person will not say that I'm in my last term, I have to do certain things so I can be retained. There's nothing like retention. You clear your 5 years and that ends it. In that case, you can concentrate on development, and then we can see some much progressive development than what we are witnessing now.
And you think, you see, my worry is that competition. That as soon as the competition comes in, the nation suffers. You see, because for me to win power, And we've talked about poverty and illiteracy. So, things like today, things like teenage pregnancy, deforestation, fortunately, environmental became an issue, population explosion. These things don't make headlines because, Charlie, if I vote, let's fill potholes, let's do street lights, let's put a school here, let's put when competition comes in, then we'll develop to favor. But if there's no competition, sometimes the leaders know that, listen, this is right for you, even though the people don't want it, and then we'll go ahead.
Let me tell you something. There is a political philosophy that in politics, especially in African politics, you do that which is acceptable, not that which is right. Because if you do that which is right, you lose elections. And no serious politician wants to lose elections, except for few. So competition, unfortunately, is not producing the needed results. Ordinarily, in a political governance system, competition is to produce the best leader who would come and turn around the fortunes of the country. But the way we have done ours, it is becoming difficult for us to achieve that. That is why the system needs re-engineering. If we can re-engineer the system to allow the competition to produce the most competent person who will continue to perform exceptionally to bring development in that manner, I can tell you that we can fast-track our development.
Until then, you see, because with this 275 buses business, if I were to rewind time, and Mr. Potofi, being chairman for NDC, had bought even 10 of these buses during, delegate election, the NPP would have ripped him to shreds. The same people today are saying, no, it is perfect, there's nothing wrong, he's an individual. So until then, what do we do?
That's why I'm saying that until then, let us put checks and balances in the system. Let us properly regulate the way we finance political party activities in this country. The omnibus generic provision in the Constitution and the Political Parties Act is not enough. The Political Parties Act requires the issuance of regulations. Let us issue subsequent regulations that will set framework and then bans or guidance on how much a party can spend on an activity. That on its own can create inflation in this country. That on its own, if we don't regulate political party financing in an election year, it can create inflation in this country. So why don't we be proactive to develop those standards so we'll be able to regulate it gradually? Because if we are not very careful, we open it up and it creates a necessary problem for us. I will not be surprised if in a particular elections year, businessmen will go to bank and they will not have loans. They need loans to go and invest in their business. But the banks will be prepared to give it out to some politicians because they are likely to get higher interest rate from there because they also see it as investment. So as a country, we should be forward-looking and develop that system to be able to properly manage the financing of electoral practices and political party activities in this country.
One other thing which always comes up is, we always need a leader who say, I'm not scared of losing election. Okay, fine. So maybe you are not scared of losing election, but we took you there, Joe. And when you finish, it's my turn. So you can't be doing things which would affect me. So the leader has got two pressures where, okay, fine, I may be principled and I don't care if I lose the election, but you didn't get there on your own. The general secretary, the party chairman, and they have, people in the line of succession which after you, they have to come. So the leader then is faced with, look, I still have to toe the line so that somebody else comes.
That is why I would again say that we should tweak our system, modify the system in such a way that politics and politicians will do that which is right and not that which is acceptable. Because now it is gradually becoming the norm. Now look, at certain times, if you try to do that which is right, go and sack people from the pavement, insist on people who are not paying taxes to pay, close down businesses of political party activists themselves, and you see what will happen. You do it once, twice, and there will be some order from somewhere that will prevent you from doing it. And when it happens like that, you don't promote good governance. So we have to work on our system. It may not be a perfect system, but we have good traditional value systems. You cannot go to any village and the chief will say that we are contributing to do something, and you said you will not pay. and you go there and the chief will laugh with you. No, the system will deal with you. The system will deal with you. So we should allow the systems to deal with people. If we are able to do that, it will help us. Otherwise, we should forget about development.
It should, Doc, with, I don't know, the governance system we have chosen and all these technicalities, I mean, should it be a compulsory course for everybody going into school to study? Because it's fairly complicated. Every time you come on this show, you drop a law or two or something which, oh, really? Do we have this in our laws?
No. It is not only for those who go to school. Democracy affects all of us. Every Ghanaian is affected by democracy, or democratic or representative democracy, because the MPs are representing us, assembly members are representing us. So it is the duty of government to make sure that the average Ghanaian understand their civic and political rights. And this is the duty of NCCE. But this institution is also under-resourced. That is why I started by saying that we should make sure we reduce most of the laws, most of the political party activities, most of the electoral regulations into a local language. Resource the NCCE, get them to go to the villages so that the average Ghanaian would understand what is meant by constitution. What are my political rights and civic rights under the constitution? What does the political party laws say? How do I demand accountability from my assembly member or from my MP? If the MP does not represent me, what do I need to do? What are my rights as a citizen? If I call myself Ghanaian, what am I entitled to? And then what am I also supposed to do in return? So I'm not surprised most people are not delivering on their duties to the state because they don't know what they get from the state. Once you know your rights, then you know your responsibilities and duties to the state. So it is the onus or is on government and other state institutions to intensify education, not for only those who are going to school. Those who are going to school, they are fortunate, so it should be part of the educational process from primary 1 to the university level. Those who are not very fortunate to go to school, they are very important to us. They also have one vote. We should initiate and put in place a system that will continuously build their capacity to help them to understand their rights and duties to the state.
That will be is it idealism, or is it something that are we being idealist by thinking that way?
It is a must. There is no if or but. The Constitution guarantees people that, except that we've not been able to operationalize it. The institution to do that, NCCE, is under-resourced. The institution is not even fully decentralized. You go to some of the districts and you don't have the offices there. You know, so we have to resource NCCE, get them to work. They should partner with the Information Services Department, get people to understand the intricacies of democracy, especially representative democracy, so that they know that if the person is representing you, the person is your agent. You have sent the person there. The person is expected to account to you on how they have used the power you have bestowed on them.
Let me ask you a fair question. Do you think it's intentional? Because, I mean, it's like me giving you bullets. Look, take the bullets and try and shoot me. Because what party will come into power and say, yeah, go and arm the people so that when I come around, they can tell me when I'm lying or when I'm not lying? I'll leave it like that. I mean, is it intentional?
It is not intentional.
Not planned.
Yeah,
I would say planned.
Yeah, I would not say it was planned, it was intentional. But I think it is the characteristics of our electorate that determines how they should be treated. So it takes one leader to change the components of, or the composition of the electorate by capacitating them. And, you know, most leaders will not do the right things unless you advocate and you push them. So let us all join the trail. Let us all advocate. Let us all push them to the wall to make sure that we sensitize our unfortunate brothers and sisters who do not understand what is happening, and therefore somebody can give them 50 Ghana cedis and they will vote for the person.
No, that's where this competition thing comes in, because if you start this campaign today, it means you're NDC. Because NPP is in government and you are starting this campaign. If one day the parties switch over and you start the campaign, we NPP need, that's why you're starting this campaign. And 50, you know, there will be a great majority of the same people you're fighting for fight against you. So that's where sometimes the competition works against us.
I'm sure they will fight against you because you may not have sent your message down well to them. And I believe in consistency advocacy. If you advocate for good reforms in our democratic governance process and they brand you as belonging to one political party, if the scales changes or turns and that political party comes to power, sustain the advocacy. You don't all of a sudden relegate to the background. You don't sustain the advocacy because your party has come to power. Indeed, it is good to even criticize your party to do the right thing, to enable them to continue to be in power than not criticizing them. But you will not do them any good if you don't criticize them. The best is what we want for Ghana. Fortunately, they have used the taxpayers' money to educate us. So we will be able to discern between what is right and what is wrong, and then punch holes into it, and then do advocacy to force the duty bearers to do that which is right for unfortunate brothers and sisters.
It's a huge task, but I really sometimes find it amazing when you do advocacy for a particular group and the same group turn around and fight you.
It's because they do not understand the basis of your advocacy and they have not been adequately prepared or sensitized on the expected outcome of your advocacy. In certain cases, when you are doing advocacy on behalf of a group of people, let them understand the benefits that they stand to gain. But you also have to strategically note that the people you are doing advocacy against can pass behind you and go and influence them against you. So when you are doing the advocacy, you do it in two fronts. Work on the people's mind and then make sure that you push the leaders. And I think we'll be able to make headway. It doesn't take a day, a month, or a year. It takes years and centuries to make an impact. But once you make the impact, it becomes permanent in the representative democracy process.
You think it's time to sit around the table with regards to our style of governance? We have to come to the table now?
Definitely. I think it is about time we initiate a national conversation on the type of representative democracy we want to have. Because I even think that the way the electoral areas we have, some of them are too large. Some of them qualifies to be constituencies. And some of the constituencies are too large and sparse. And you have MPs representing there. And these MPs are given equal resources. It's just unfair. So I think it is about time we open up a national conversation on the way we want to go to enhance or deepen representative democracy and electoral system that will produce the most competent person and not the most popular person.
Beautiful conversation. I told you Dr. Oduro Osae has in-depth knowledge with regards to grassroots governance and politics. He's a lawyer, he's an accountant as well. But I always give you the number 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001. That's Tanti's Fashions, and they make my shirts for the show. So give them a call, get yourself a nice shirt. But this conversation hasn't ended. We will continue it. Doc, thank you so much. And to you at home, we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you very much for watching.